I spent a lot of my food budget eating out at the beginning of the month, so I didn't have much left for the rest of it. In this video, I want to show you my attempt at meal prepping while shopping frugally and using up anything else I could find in my pantry or freezer. I'll show you the items I already owned meal by meal, but first let me tell you how I spent my available €10 in an efficient and clever way. I decided to allocate a small portion of my tiny budget for different categories of ingredients in order to get a variety of things. I did not make a list at home because I wanted to just figure it out in the shop based on the split and then go from there. I thought I could get creative enough to make stuff with whatever I could find. So this is what I got for €10. For €2 you can usually get 2 types of veggies and 2 types of fruit. Carrots and apples are usually inexpensive, and the bell peppers and plums were on sale. It really pays off to check what's on offer when you go shopping, but do not get fooled by marketing. Always make sure it's an actual good value deal. My first breakfast before I started meal prepping consisted of a fresh kiwi I had left over from a previous grocery trip, some homemade Romanian crackers that my partner's parents made, and this fruity yogurt drink I bought with a dairy budget. Alright, let's begin the meal prep with this extremely delicious soup. From the €10 grocery haul, I used 1 carrot, 1 bell pepper, and the red lentils. For flavor, I used some of the spices I already owned, like turmeric, smoked paprika, salt, and universal veggie seasoning, which looks like this inside of the bag. Look at them all measured out. I like to saute my veggies in oil before making any kind of soup, and I found some olive oil left over in my pantry. I also found some frozen spinach in the freezer and decided to include a few cubes for the extra nutrients. Frozen things can really help you when you're in a bind. I sliced my fresh bell pepper and then I chopped it further into what I think is an appropriate size for a soup. The flavor of cooked peppers is one of my favorites. It can really kick things up a notch. I don't know if you've heard of zakuska, but that is one of the tastiest Romanian spreads if done right, and it has a peppery base. Anyway, this is the diced pepper for the soup, and here's me grating the carrot after I peeled it. I considered dicing it as well, but there are many genuine reasons to choose this instead. Firstly, you have to consider that carrots are hard, and cutting them is a bit more difficult than it is with peppers. Carrots lend themselves better to being grated. You could also slice them, but my second point applies here as well. If you don't grate them, their flavor doesn't mix as evenly in the soup, and it's more intense in the individual pieces. So that was my reasoning, and this is how much I got out of 1 carrot. I sauteed both veggies at the same time with some olive oil in this big pot. I cooked them until they turned half as soft, not mush, just tender, because they will disintegrate further while boiling with the lentils. Look at these lentils though, you have to thoroughly wash them to get rid of this cloudiness they create in the water. Rose from Cheap Lazy Vegan didn't wash them in her soup, and they did turn out fine, but it's become a habit for me, so I did it. Okay, as I said, I let the veggies cook and they looked like this. Then I added the spices, the water, the lentils, and the frozen spinach, and cooked everything until the lentils were soft. I didn't think the final color looked super appetizing, but looking back I disagree. Either way, I decided to blend some of it to make it creamier, and I put it back in to achieve this new and even weirder color. It was, however, very delicious. A lentil soup is such an easy and versatile meal, perfect for eating multiple days in a row. There's never been a lentil soup I didn't like. For meal number 2, I made cornbread with sweet plums. I have to start by pointing out that I already had 2 bags of flour, out of which one was open, so I don't know why I bought another one for my grain budget. I guess I was thinking about making my own bread. Maybe I'll do that for the next meal prep. It was unnecessary this time. Aside from that, I also already had sugar, baking powder, cornmeal, some leftover oat milk, a tiny little bit of sunflower oil, and some coconut oil. Step 1 was trying to guess how many plums I needed to have. They were looking nice. I covered the bottom of a baking tray with coconut oil and sugar and put the plum halves on top. I mixed all the remaining dry ingredients with the wet, and I finished the sunflower oil in this recipe, so I needed to add some extra olive oil as well. For my next meal prep, I guess I will have to make less greasy things unless I buy more oil, but with the €1 per category budget limitation, more oil isn't really affordable or feasible. Once everything was properly mixed, I poured it on top of the plums. It's a very liquidy mixture, but I've made this sort of thing before and it's the perfect consistency for baking. Of course, the original recipe has no fruit included, but it's fun to get creative and improvise. After about an hour in the oven, it looked like this and it tasted great. Another win in my book, and a meal I was able to have multiple times throughout the week. This is how it looked after being refrigerated. Scrumptious, I think, worthy of its comforting taste. From the video I did trying out Cheap Lazy Vegan meal prep, I also had some leftover protein powder. which I decided to turn into a sauce with extra cocoa to cover up the protein flavor. I of course needed sugar for it and also some water, and to make sure I really wouldn't taste the protein, I added some vanilla essence, which I bought with the staple budget. I kept adding water to thin it out, thinking it would evaporate while cooking, and it did. It went through several stages of boiling, and when I was pleased with the stickiness, I just added some coconut oil, hoping it would help it stay quite creamy even after cooling. I didn't have a lot in the end, but I had used up all my sugar and couldn't make any more. I was happy with the result and used some of it on top of some cornbread the next day. Next up, I had a rice dish, which was fairly simple. I had rice in my pantry. I stir-fried the frozen veggies that I bought for €1, just peas, carrots, and corn. I cut up some of the sausage sticks into equally sized pieces, and I stir-fried those as well. I do enjoy a colorful pan. I boiled the rice separately and added it to the pan when the veggies were almost cooked. Fluffy rice is lovely. I like it fried just as much, but this time I kept it fluffy because I didn't want to add any extra oil to fry it, and there wasn't that much space in the pan anyway. The rice was boiled in salty water. Don't think I forgot to add any seasoning, just salt this time, but it counts. I planned to have this yummy meal with the other bell pepper or with fresh apple slices, or even with the plums I had left over from the cornbread. And that's what I did, and it was all good. And finally, I made something completely unusual, an edamame tart. For that, I used some of the nutritional yeast I found in my pantry, some garlic powder from the spice cabinet, and some salt and flour. I added a little bit of the newly bought grilled spice mix to the salt and the flour for a unique taste and mixed everything in. This was basically the tart crust, which I combined with whatever coconut oil I had left. I was too lazy to roll the dough, so I just pressed it into this glass oven tray. By this time, it was a bit late and I was a bit tired from cooking so many things. I poked it with a fork and let it bake in the oven while I made the filling. It's a great dough that does not stick to the pan. For the filling, I blended the other carrot with some flour, nutritional yeast, salt, garlic powder, mustard, yes, you heard that right, olive oil, and water. I blended it as well as I could before cooking it on the stove to make it thicken. I honestly should have cooked it for longer or added more flour because it wasn't quite as thick as I wanted it. Here I poured it into the pre-baked crust and the amount was perfect. I didn't have any leftover sauce. I rinsed the canned edamame I bought for €1 in order to add some protein to the tart, and when it's assembled, I baked everything again. After baking, the filling was still very jiggly and liquid, but I couldn't wait another moment and had to taste it right then and there. It spilled. How could it not? But after being chilled, it hardened and it was easier to eat even without utensils. Anyway, thank you for watching. This was a successful struggle meal plan. I'm a huge fan of the grocery split I tried, even though I ended up not using the salad spice mix I bought this week. Okay, see you!